Mwamba Emmanuel Bose bakasama Bale fwaya Mwamba Emmanuel Bakasama wakulira Tule fwaya Mwamba wesu Emmanuel Chipane ni PF Tule fwaya Mwamba wesu Emmanuel Wakuito uwele Emmanuel Mwamba Mbasata Emmanuel Ni fwaya Emmanuel Mwamba Mbasata Emmanuel Bakasama wakulira
Good day. We have taken time to discuss the energy crisis. I think it requires that this matter is attended to broadly and in detail. Zambians are being load-shedded for up to 12 hours or more. I think this is a serious crisis. It has immediately affected all business and industrial programs. Our people, ordinary people in barbershops, saloons, welders, tailors, have all been affected by this lack of power and the load shedding exercise that's going on. Where is the problem? For me, I would like to attribute this directly to the president. President Hakainde Hichilema, I think has not performed very well. We are seeing leadership failure in motion. Why do I say so? All sectors and all clusters of government are failing. The economic and social sector is failing. Look, we have a huge cost of living crisis for over a year now. It hasn't been attended to. The cost of essential commodities is extremely high, whether it's mealie meal, whether it's sugar, whether it's cooking oil. Schools are opening next week and our people will be troubled with the cost of fuel. Fuel is very expensive, the highest it has ever been in the last 30 years. What are the solutions the president has deployed to that? You don't see any. It's business as usual. We have a crisis in the agricultural sector where FISI program has collapsed and fertilizer hasn't been distributed, and the little that has been distributed has come too late and cannot help. We even have armyworms outbreak and there is no official announcement from government. You can see failure whichever sector or cluster of government you attribute it to, whether it's community development, health and social issues. Let's take, for example, the crisis at Ministry of Health. We've had shortages of medicines, medical supplies, laboratory reagents and equipment failure for the last 1 year. And what has been done? Rhetoric. And sadly, the president hasn't cracked his whip on the issue of either Ministry of Agriculture or Ministry of Health. His biggest hope is on the economy, that the economy should be turned around. First, there should be debt forgiveness, debt restructure that will then give this country, enough room to then implement projects and social programs. Unfortunately, you cannot hinge your programs on outside factors. The IMF is an outside factor. The issues of the creditors committee is an outside factor. The president has been waiting for an IMF program and the creditors committee to finish its work for the last 1 year. You cannot rely, as a leader on factors that you can't control. Factors that the president can control, he has failed to attend to them. Let's zero down to this energy crisis. When we saw the announcement by ZESCO that they have a surplus of over 1,100 megawatts and that they were now going to export power, You saw ZESCO managing director sign an agreement with his colleague from Namibia, his colleague from Botswana, and they've announced that they are selling power to Tanzania, they are selling power to South Africa, they are selling power traditionally where we have sold to DRC and Malawi. My question was, if this managing director had his engineers, because remember he did a page where he fired over 50 engineers at the institution. So he has no institutional memory, he has no institutional knowledge. He doesn't know that the excess demand you have in June, excess power you have in June, may not be the same excess power you have when your water levels are low between December and March. So we committed this country, for example with Namibia, on a 10-year program. We've committed to Zimbabwe a 5-year program. We've committed another program to Botswana, again longer periods without recourse or knowledge to how our power production is. That was the crisis number one, where you rush in to sign these export agreements before you assess entirely. And now Zambians are being punished so that you satisfy the contract. I have stated time and again that Zambia has sufficient power the last 10 years. Thanks to the Patriotic Front, they invested in the energy sector, like they did in the education sector, in the infrastructural sector, in the health sector. They invested a lot of money in the energy sector. So you had small power stations upgraded from 0.75 to 15 to 10 megawatts. You had new developments such as the one at Iteji, which produces 120 megawatts. And then you had the big one at Kafue Gorge Lower, which produces 750 megawatts. When I see ZESCO showing us pictures of Kariba, I'm thinking that we are not serious as a nation. Kariba is no longer the largest power producer. The largest power producer is now Kafue. Kafue Gorge Upper and Kafue Gorge Lower, between them, they are producing over 1,500 megawatts. Kariba produces 1,080. So it doesn't matter what the water levels are at Kariba. We have sufficient power. And that is why ZESCO should tell us the breakdown of all the power we are getting from Lunzua, from Chishimba Force, from Musonda, from Lusiwasi, from the mini grids in Chinsali, in Ikelengi, from power stations like Iteji, Kafue Gorge Higher, Upper and Kafue Gorge Lower. What is our production? And if you understand what our production is, and you look at our peak demand, it's 2,300 megawatts. And remember, Mopani and KCM are literally stored and they're not producing. So the mines are our biggest consumer of power. And Mopani and KCM are their minimum utilization. So where is the crisis? The crisis is a leadership crisis. Like we have persistent shortages of medicine, like we have persistent crisis in the farming sector. You have armyworms breakout in Lusaka. There is no official statement. You have FISIP that has not been delivered. There is no official statement. The president is failing on all sectors and on all clusters, and we don't see a solution in sight. And for the energy crisis, it is self-made, self-inflicted. Yes, we have power generation at Kariba that has dropped from 1,080 megawatts to 440, according to ZESCO. The information last week was that they are still producing up to 660 megawatts. So we have sufficient power. And to the independent power producers, whether it's Bangweulu Solar Power, which is based in the Lusaka M-Phase, whether it's Ngonye, whether it's Mamba Collieries, and other independent power producers. Lusemfwa has two power generation at Mulungushi, and Lusemfwa Dam itself, they produce about 50 megawatts. CEC has its own production, but the bulk of it is in generation, where they're using diesel generators. Even ZESCO still has some generator sets like Chama, is still on a generator set. They have to take that diesel. And Shangombo, they're still on generator sets. The point is, the exports, total exports, about 440 megawatts. A city like Lusaka needs 50 megawatts. If you suspended some exports or reduced the number of megawatts that you are giving your contracts, your foreign countries. If Lusaka consumes about 50 megawatts and Copperbelt maybe 40 megawatts, you can harvest from the 440 and ensure that these towns are not load-shedded. Why have I mentioned Lusaka and Copperbelt? That is where most of economic activities are taking place, especially for our people. But again, don't forget the farmers. Our farmers, especially commercial farmers, they need power, to power all their machines for them to be productive, their irrigation equipment. How will they do it if you don't give them power? So the over 440 megawatts we are exporting to Namibia, Botswana, Zimbabwe, South Africa, DRC, Malawi, Tanzania, we can reduce the power exports to ensure that our economic activities go on and go ahead. As I come to conclude on the issues, again, I attribute it to the leadership. The propaganda doesn't work with the economy. You cannot do propaganda with the economy, unfortunately. You cannot do propaganda with load shedding because our people are feeling it. You cannot lie to them that Kariba is empty. They'll tell you, what about Kafue? What about Iteji? What about the power exports you are doing of over 440 megawatts? You cannot do propaganda with the economy. You cannot do propaganda with the stomach. If someone is hungry, they are hungry. There is nothing you can do about it other than provide food. And this is where we are seeing. And sadly, even on clusters like international relations and trade, the president is also failing very hard. You saw him sign agreements in the US with US government over the electric vehicle batteries, a thing that has brought embarrassment to Africa. Why should we lease away our resources? Why should we lock away a technology to the Americans? Why should we? People might remember the early TV times where you could get a TV from America and it couldn't work in Zambia because of technological differences. Or you remember the VCRs and CDs where there are different technologies and sometimes one technology couldn't work with another. What we needed for the issues of EV batteries is to bring open source technology where we can sell our products to China, to Russia, to France, to UK, to the US, not where you lock them away. These countries are worried about energy security and they want to secure the future. And Zambia and DRC have the solution because Zambia has copper, cobalt. In fact, there are reports that we have a lot of lithium in Southern Province because we have lithium across in Zimbabwe. And there are people prospecting and digging at, artisanal mining. They are digging out lithium. So we have lithium in Southern Province. So we have all the elements, whether it's manganese, copper, cobalt, lithium, that is required for the battery technology. That's going to be a $500 billion industry by 2025. So why lock ourselves away to the Americans? We are just bringing international security threats to ourselves and we are risking the security profile of this country. Mr. President, our people are being load-shedded. Attend to the issue. Make the decision. This is not time for your indecision. Make the decision, Mr. President. Of the 440 megawatts, how many are you going to suspend in exports? Those contracts are not cast in stone. There is no contract worth its salt that doesn't have an exit clause, that doesn't have a suspension clause, that doesn't have a force majeure clause. All contracts have that provision. In this way, we have, for example, one of our major power stations, Kariba, that may be out, is underperforming, and it's a sufficient reason to suspend. For example, we are giving Namibia 180 megawatts. We can suspend maybe 80 megawatts and give Namibia 100 megawatts so that you feed Copperbelt and Lusaka. And tell Namibia that there's no problem. We'll have our dam full by March. It's just 2 months. You wait for 2 months and we'll resume our exports. There's nothing wrong with that. The president, you call yourself chief negotiator, chief marketing officer, chief salesman, attend to the crisis of load shedding. It's unnecessary to load shed our people. We have adequate power. The factors that are making our people suffer load shedding have nothing to do with lack of power. Power is here. It's just the decision making. Lastly, Mr. President, you had said you are unlocking the rigidities around ZESCO and independent power producers because you want a lot of solar plants. They take about 18 months to come online. Our caution there is do not allow ZESCO to sign these power purchase agreements that are too expensive. ZESCO currently owes Mwamba collieries over $500 million because they buy power from Mwamba collieries at very expensive price. I think it's 14 cents per kilowatt. And they sell it to us at 6 cents. To the mines, 3 cents. Who covers the difference? Why should ZESCO subsidize the independent power producers? So any of these independent power producers that want to come online, we must ensure that ZESCO is not made to sign agreements that are unfair to ZESCO, that make the people of Zambia pay the independent power producers. So for Mwamba collieries, the Zambians are subsidizing that plant. We currently owe them $500 million. The Zambian people have to foot that bill for one simple reason, because ZESCO buys power from Mwamba at extremely exorbitant price, and then it is sold to our consumers at very low price, and ZESCO is left with that huge burden to cover the difference. This is robbing ZESCO of investment money to do more generation capacity, to increase our generation capacity and invest in power production. So, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, Mwewe Kalachalo, load shedding is a decision of the president. Load shedding is a decision not of ZESCO, not of those engineers. It's a decision, it's a political decision. The president has to make a very thorough decision that our people will not be load shedded for the next 2 months. We'll have adequate power by March, April, when all the dams are working very well. And it's just 2 months, and we can weather this if a leader makes a proper decision. So God bless you until we come next time for another interesting discussion. We'll see you then.
Mwamba Emmanuel Bose wakasama Wale fwaya Mwamba Emmanuel Wakasama wakulira Tule fwaya Mwamba wesu Emmanuel Chupani ni PF Tule fwaya Mwamba wesu Emmanuel Wakuito mwele Emmanuel Mwamba ambassador Emmanuel Wale fwaya Emmanuel Mwamba ambassador Emmanuel Alakale wabomba Mwamba Emmanuel Bose wakasama Wale fwaya Mwamba Emmanuel